Okay, we are recording. So, final chapter, chapter 9 of Return of the Jedi, and a lot like the previous chapter, I really, really like it, and I do believe far better than what you get in the movie. Some of that definitely is just because you couldn't, getting inside of people's heads in the book, you can't do that in the movie. Um, but even still, there was one thing, and it's one of those things I would not trust a remake of Return of the Jedi. Let me be clear, I would not trust that. But the intensity of the naval battle is so much better in the book. Holy crap. Because I think it even starts the chapter off with, one of the rebel cruisers. Its tail is on fire, is exploding currently. So they're charging at one of the Star Destroyers. So when they inevitably blow up, they're able to take the Star Destroyer with them. And they do. And also, they've got, did it say troop carriers? I don't know, some sort of transport ship. That thing's loaded up with explosives, so they're just ramming. They're just going to ram a Star Destroyer and everyone's evacuated first. I was like, it is way more intense and way more desperate in a way as well. I was like, this is an actual fight. This is an actual battle. Whereas in the movie, I want to say, the cruiser, the whether it's Rebel cruisers or the Star Destroyers, they're just sitting there. It's just the fighters flying around, which I get. The effects are going to be so much easier to do with the fighters. But man, it would be like, I wonder if any fans have, looked at the book and been like, we can do this, we can animate this. Because it is the competition between that and what's in the movie wouldn't even exist. You would watch what the book describes and be like, okay, I want this in the movie. Can we edit that in? It is so much better. And also, and this does skip ahead a little bit, I don't care, I'm going to do it because, I keep calling it the Executor, that's never actually given it its name in the book. I'm pretty sure that is its name, the Super Star Destroyer, Vader's flagship. Well, for one thing, it's not the A-Wing crashing into the bridge in Kamikaze Run. No, he does. No, wait, he doesn't. That was in the previous chapter. There was a ship there was one of the fighters that was hit in the previous chapter and was going to dive down, crash into a ship, into a Star Destroyer. And he does actually aim himself to take out a forward battery, such that one of the other fighters actually then comments under his breath, "Thank you," because by doing that, it did save them. In this, Green Leader, who is actually one of the fighters that Lando orders some of them while they're inside the second Death Star to fly back up to the surface. Maybe some of the TIE fighters will follow. One. But still, Green Leader goes out, and it's because Akbar had actually requested fighter support as well. So that was also part of it. Comes out, because they are hammering the Super Star Destroyer as hard as they can. The cruisers are. And it's like their forward shields are down. Aim for the bridge, aim for the bridge, aim for the bridge. And this is when Green Leader arrives along with some others, and it's like, we're here. We got this. Well, not that we're going to handle this, but yeah, we're going in. They fire torpedoes, and that is what destroys the bridge, not ramming into it. The explosion from destroying the bridge, though, and it sets off a lot of other explosions that, can't think of the word now, but it runs through the ship and crushes it, basically. It crumples under this. Those explosions take out Green Leader. So he does still die, but it's not as a suicide run. So I guess that they just adapted the thing that I mentioned from the previous chapter into this one, which is fair, but yeah. But it then describes, and this would be one of those things, there's no way they could have done it back then, but you could do it today. You could absolutely do it today. Is that from all these explosions and the bridge being destroyed, the Star Destroyer is out of control, and it's just spinning down now. It describes it like a pinwheel. But as it's doing that towards the Death Star, it slams into and is taking out fighters. It's slamming into cruisers, taking them out. It slams into an ordnance ship, it's described as. Slams into that. By the time it finally hits the Death Star, the impact and explosion is so huge, it rocks the entire station and sets off its own sequence of explosions inside. Now, something I don't remember, and when I watch the movie, I'll find out. When did we start seeing the chaotic evacuation from the Death Star? In the book, it's clear. That's actually because of the Executor running into it. It's not because of the reactor core being destroyed. But I feel like my thought in the movie was always that it was the reactor core being hit. that the Executor basically diving down like that, well, yes, it's still the Super Sorcerer is tiny compared to the Death Star, so it wasn't that big a deal. I'll have to watch and see. I might be misremembering the chain of events. But definitely in the book, yes, they do still need to destroy the main reactor, but everyone on board is losing their minds because of the explosion set off by the Executor crashing into it. Or the Executor, I guess I should say. That would probably be more correct. The Superstar Destroyer, Vader's flagship. But yeah, it's so much more intense, so much more desperate. The battle is so much better. I haven't looked it up. I will maybe try to look up if somebody has done a animated CG rendering of the battle as described in the book. Unfortunately, I would doubt it. Because so many people, they don't understand that novelizations of movies exist. So they might have no idea this exists, but it would be fascinating to see some people who was like, yeah, I love Star Wars. Have you read the books? You mean the extended universe or the legends, as Disney now calls it? No, I mean the novelizations of the movie. What? Read Return of the Jedi. Read it, and animation? Yeah, animate the battle. And it's like, why? When you read it, you'll understand. It's like, it is so much better. Okay, so that covers a fair amount of this. But now for the Luke and Vader, fair amount of the notes. Luke and Vader. So Luke is being electrocuted. And by the way, even though I said in the previous, for the previous chapter, it wasn't exactly clear. It's not like it was named as Force Lightning in the, in that chapter, but that the Emperor was like a sorcerer using lightning. Here it is basically referred to as the Emperor's lightning. So yes, Force Lightning. I still think it might be. It's not truly that, but that is the closest analogy. So that's where we're going. Anyway, the Emperor's continuing with this, and the speech there is a little different than in the movie, for what I remember. But Luke actually stops, and that is one thing in the movie that is different. In that even at the end, when Vader finally does something, Luke was still kind of moving and even going, "Father, please." It's like, that's not in here. Luke is twitching until he finally stops because of how intense the Emperor is hitting him with the attack. And is continuing to do so even when Luke is apparently lifeless. At this moment, Vader had actually crawled over, described in the previous chapter as a wounded animal, crawled over to the Emperor's side. He apparently was still on the ground. And at this moment is when he leaps up to grab the Emperor. He's not standing next to the Emperor and just... No, he leaps up, grabs him, and then apparently lifts him over, and despite being the weakest he has ever been, he is still doing this because he is so concentrated on killing the Emperor. He's so concentrated. Doesn't matter how weak he is, he's doing this. And the Emperor is then, firing lightning in all directions and hitting Vader. That, it does weaken him further. And he starts stumbling, but he's stumbling to the bridge and ultimately hurls the Emperor over. So it's like, this whole moment there is quite different. One thing that is unfortunate is we don't get any explanation for why Vader turned. We don't. And I wish it were there. Just something, and it could have been after the fact. It could have been after the fact. No problem with that, but this is basically unexplained. But the moment between Luke and Vader, when it's like, take my mask off, there is zero comparison. Okay, the book, because of how, it's like 3 pages going through this moment, that it's like literally a second is passing, just going through and being in Vader's head, is fantastic. In Anakin's head, I should say. It is fantastic. So Vader, after throwing the Emperor over, falls down and actually wants to follow after him. He wants them both to be destroyed. Okay? It's Luke grabbing him and pulling him back that keeps him from falling and keeps him from his own death. It's like, that's better than in the movie. As I remember in the movie, he just held him down there and it's like, kind of looking down and still feeling some of the effects. And then you just see the Emperor falling and that's it. Not this where it's like, no, he wants to die himself. He wants it all destroyed. He wants all the evil destroyed. He has had the change of heart. He is not necessarily to his own decision redeemed, but he is trying to be good here, do something good, and it's like, I have sinned so much, I must also be destroyed. But Luke grabs and pulls him back. It's like such a better moment than what we get in the movie. Because what I recall from the movie, I mean, yeah, Vader does kind of collapse and then like turn around. Luke is near him, but that's really it. It's Luke just came up to him, not saved his life. But also that after, because Luke is also weakened, pulled him back, and they're both just lying there, and says their bodies entwined because they're both so weak, and like they're not saying anything. They're just silent, lying there, recovering. So then we get the where Vader, Luke has successfully been dragging Vader. Okay, I'm sorry. Don't I want to? I'd have to end up reading like 2 or 3 pages. It is so good. But before getting to that, there is one criticism I do want to give. Okay. Sorry, I smell something a little off. I'll have to check that. Just distract me. One thing that does annoy me is it is not unreasonable that while Luke is trying to get him to a shuttle, which why no one else is running to the shuttle, because it's like there are stormtroopers running all around. Some are trying to run away. It is not unreasonable that a stormtrooper seeing Vader weakened there, ignoring who the hell Luke is, but seeing Luke trying to carry him, trying to help him, it is not unreasonable. A stormtrooper would run up and help him. Okay, it is not. And for a comparison to give that, yes, you could have somebody who technically they're an enemy is still willing to help. In Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, I don't remember what the name of the Klingon was. Might have been Maltz. But after Spock, who is still in a younger form, is like an adolescent, hurls of a Klingon who tried grabbing him away, this one comes down, is like just crouched, and is just watching next to Saavik. There are no enemies here. They are both just watching, observing, trying to figure out what's going on here. You could have something like that where it doesn't matter that they're supposed to be enemies. It doesn't matter that there's supposed to be any animus between them. There is something else here to draw their focus, draw their attention, and their focus has their attention. So that's what they do. So yeah, I think you could have had that. And plus it's weird that there's no one else on the shuttle. That's just Luke piloting. I mean, you could even have it where multiple stormtroopers are actually trying to get on there, potentially helping Vader, not realizing Luke is an enemy, just doing that. And none of them can pilot it, but Luke can't, so Luke actually saves a bunch of them. You could do that. That would have been absolutely fair, instead of just randomly the last shuttle here no one's tried to take until Luke gets there. Yeah, anyhow. Okay. It's actually page before. Luke, help me take this mask off. And this is like because Luke is so weakened that they have it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Luke rests his father on the ground, trying to collect strength one last time as explosions grew louder all around him. By the way, the explosions are actually kind of important to note here. Luke, help me take this mask off. Luke shook his head. You'll die. Dark Lord's voice was weary. Nothing can stop that now. Just once let me face you without it. Let me look on you with my own eyes. Luke was afraid to see his father as he really was. Afraid to see what person could have become so dark. The same person who fathered Luke and Leia. Afraid to know that Anakin Skywalker, who lived inside Darth Vader. Vader, too, was afraid to let his son see him, to remove his armored mask that had been between them so long, the black armored mask that had been his only means of existing for over 20 years. It had been his voice, and his breath, and his invisibility, his shield against all human contact. But now he would remove it, for he would see his son before he died. That's the start of this, and it continues on for like another 3 pages. And it's all actually pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. Together they lifted it off, which I want to say is different from the movie. So Luke finally seeing the face. It was the sad, benign face of an old man. Bald, beardless, with a mighty scar running from the top of his head to the back of his scalp. He had unfocused, deep-set dark eyes, and his skin was pasty white, for it had not seen the sun in 2 decades. The old man smiled weakly. Tears glazed his eyes now. For a moment, he looked not too unlike Ben. By the way, one thought that I had in this, I am even more annoyed now with their decision for some versions of Return of the Jedi to put nothing against Hayden Christensen. I'm pretty sure I've got the name right. Nothing against him, but replacing the original actor with the Force Ghost of the original actor with the Force Ghost of him there, because it's like what he is describing here. The actor that they take the mask off of in Return of the Jedi fits this description, and so to remove it, and also further when you have like Vader even thinking about, well, Anakin thinking about how he once looked, and I'll try to get to that as well. It's like to take that away, to have now somebody that looks completely different from who the mask came off of, actually does bother me even more. I mean, it's like I never felt it was necessary to do that anyway, but it's like it really does bother me. There is a little bit of a setup for it being the older the image of him when younger, before becoming Vader, but nah. It was a face full of meanings that Luke would forever recall. Regret he saw most plainly, and shame. Memories could be seen flashing across it, memories of rich times and horrors and love too. It was a face. Hang on. We don't necessarily need all of the explanation, the description of the face, but it is definitely there, and this is what it means. Like this entire paragraph here that is so good. This is actually important. Luke felt a pang of remorse that the only sounds now to be heard were those of explosions, the only smells, the pungent stink of electrical fires. Still, it was a touch, palpable, unfiltered, that in taking this all off, Anakin is now being exposed to these things that are horrible, but the fact that it is real is so important, so valuable. He saw the old eyes focus on him. Tears burned Luke's cheeks, fell on his father's lips. His father smiled at the taste. And I'm pretty sure I skipped over it, but also that Anakin himself was also crying. It was a face that had not seen itself in 20 years. Vader saw his son crying and knew it must have been at the horror of the face the boy beheld. This also goes on for a while and is so good. Because he has such regret that it's like he thinks that it is just the horror that is why Luke is crying, but no, Luke is crying over the death of his father dying here, not the image. And at one point, he tries to apologize for this, and Luke can't even say anything. He just shakes his head. No, that's not it. That's not it. Okay. I'm gonna skip ahead. I really don't want to. I'm gonna come back, but I am gonna skip ahead. Okay. The boy had pulled him from. I have to set up a little bit. This boy had pulled him from that pit. Here now with this act. This boy was good. The boy was good, and the boy had come from him. So there must have been good in him too. He smiled up again at his son, and for the first time loved him, and for the first time in many long years loved himself again as well. Suddenly he smelled something, flared his nostrils, sniffed once more. Wildfires, that was what it was. Just blooming, it must be spring. And there was thunder. He cocked his head, strained his ears. Yes, spring thunder for a spring rain, to make the flowers bloom. Yes, there, he felt a raindrop on his lips. He licked the delicate droplet. But wait, it wasn't sweet water, it was salty, it was a teardrop. Yeah, so he focused on Luke once again and saw his son was crying. Yes, that was it, he was tasting his boy's grief, because he looked so horrible. Because he was so horrible. Going on a little bit, because he wants to assuage this. Luminous beings are we, Luke, not this crude matter. Luke shook his head, too, to tell his father it was all right, to dismiss the old man's shame, to tell him nothing mattered now, and everything, but he couldn't talk. Yeah. And then skipping ahead a little bit more, he wished briefly, this is Luke, he'd met Yoda to thank the old Jedi. Oh, wait, no, sorry, Vader. He wished briefly he'd met Luke to thank the old Jedi for the training he'd given Luke. but perhaps he'd be with Yoda soon, now in the ethereal oneness of the Force and with Obi-Wan. I mean, he quoted Yoda there as well, and it's just like, which is also kind of the whole him returning to being a Jedi, that kind of teaching, but it's like, this is so well written here. I was like, this is pages of this stuff that none of it can exist in the movie because you don't get to be in Vader's head. But I wanted to get to that because the whole, he's, I don't think it's even fair to call it a hallucination. But that the smell, instead of being electrical fires, it's wildflowers. Instead of it being wildflowers blossoming in the spring. Instead of it being explosions, he's hearing the thunder of a spring storm. And instead of it being tears, it's rain. I mean, it's like, it's incredibly beautiful because I say it's not necessarily fair to just call it a hallucination, because that seems too dismissive of it. That could almost be like his soul trying to grab onto the good things that he has known in his life before. Trying to grab onto that, trying to hold onto that, and bring him to it. And then, also, you could even take it a little further as though the Force itself kind of returning to him as well, in the light side kind of way. Okay, so now I want to come back and describe further his appearance. Vader saw his son crying. He knew it must have been at the horror of the face the boy beheld. So that's paragraph before. It intensified momentarily Vader's own sense of anguish. To his crimes, now he added guilt at the imagined repugnance of his appearance. But then this brought him to mind of the way he used to look, striking and grand, with a wry tilt to his brow that hinted of invincibility and took in all of life with a wink. Yes, that was how he looked once. And this memory brought a wave of other memories with it, memories of brotherhood and home, his dear wife, the freedom of deep space, Obi-Wan, his friend, and how that friendship had turned he knew not how, but got injected nonetheless with some uncaring virulence that festered until, hold. These were memories he wanted none of, not now. Memories of molten lava crawling up his back. No. This boy had pulled him from that pit. Here now with this act, this boy, and then we get into the whole memory there. So he is clinging to those memories, trying to get those memories. I was like, son of a bitch, this is so much better than what you could ever get in a movie. I mean, it's not even just that it isn't done well in Return of the Jedi. I'm not saying that. The moment is actually it's done fairly well in the movie. It's just, you can't do that in a movie. Because you can't be in their heads like this. Yeah, that is kind of it. I mean, the rest is basically what we do know from the movie. Father, I won't leave you, despite everything blowing up around them. And Vader pulled Luke very close. Yeah, Vader's also stronger in this. Like, he does have some ability to, like, pull him close and all that. In the movie, it does seem he's lifeless at this point. Luke, you were right. And it does say, spoken to very, very close. Okay. There was a comment at one point that he is so weak that he's barely audible, but that wasn't for this, I guess. Luke, you were right, and you were right about me. Tell your sister you were right. And that was with that, he closed his eyes, and Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, died. This is so much better. This is so much better. I mean, it's one of those, and I don't mind admitting this. I'm much a bigger fan of Star Trek than Star Wars, and I don't know why. There we go. Why it just darkened on me. But it's still, Star Wars is something to share and to pass on. The good stuff. But reading this, especially for Return of the Jedi, it is definitely there's no way I would ever, if I would have kids to pass Star Wars down to, there's no way I'd ever just pass down the movies. I'm passing down this as well. Okay, there's no way I'm not. Because it is done so much better. I want to do a separate video for going with the whole thing. So focusing just on Return of the Jedi for the moment. It is so good. So much better, in my opinion, than the movie as well. that's like, no, you have to read it. It's almost like, what was it? I saw somebody share a story that he was only allowed to watch the Lord of the Rings movies when he first read the book. I mean, it would be almost like that. It was like, no, you have to read the novelizations at least. Well, yeah. No, I'd make him read all three, even though Empire Strikes Back is so poor. Actually, maybe because it's like, writing is important to me, I'd be like, okay, and tell me why it's not that good a book. I would do that. I would do that. It would depend on how old the kid is, though. Oh, man, but it's so much better. It really is. Last thing I have here, because I do remember it being said that there was a plan that the Millennium Falcon doesn't make it out of the Death Star, that Lando does die. Not in the book. Not in the book. He does, in fact, survive in the book. And what's kind of funny is Lando and Luke actually enter the Ewok village at the same time. Which I think in the movie you do see Lando already there, but it is kind of weird because Luke does save Vader's body, which I do find it wasn't immediately clear that he took the body with him. But he does save the body, does burn it on the fire, all that, and then goes to the village. How he managed to connect with Lando, I have no idea. That's not explained. And you'd think there could be some conversation there, or just some conversation anyway, but nah, it's just that they go. They're just there together, and then he does have a sense seeing Yoda, Kenobi, and actually, hang on. It is right at the end. I can get to it pretty quick. For an effervescent moment, I might not be pronouncing that correctly. Looking into the bonfire, Luke thought he saw faces dancing. Yoda, Ben, was it his father? He drew away from his companions to try and see what the faces were saying. They were ephemeral and spoke only to the shadows of the flames and then disappeared altogether. Yeah, but I mean, it's just not the same thing as that. I think it's better that the movie has him standing off to the side, just like quietly observing this, and like only for Luke to see that, yes, we are here together, and to show Anakin is there, that you did succeed in redeeming him. I think that is better than putting them in the fire. But it's still, like I said, nothing against Hayden Christensen. Why would I have anything against him? I'm just against the choice of replacing the original actor in that scene. I really think that they should have kept the original, because that's the Vader we saw with the mask off, and with how the book so emphasizes how he feels such guilt and is afraid that Luke is crying over seeing such a repugnant face. I mean, I guess one way to put it is this. Even though it's been a while since I've watched the movie or read the book, Portrait of Dorian Gray. Okay? It would be like suddenly at the end when all of the horror goes back to his body instead of being on the portrait, it's suddenly being a different actor there. You can't do that. It destroys so much meaning there. But that's what they did. And for those of you that don't know, Portrait of Dorian Gray, it has been a while, but essentially Dorian Gray had a portrait made of him that had this special power. I don't remember exactly how that power came about, but it granted him eternal youth. I don't remember if it also made him immortal or not, but eternal youth. But also, there is a certain undercurrent of sin is what ages you. But every time he commits a sin, the horror of it, the despicableness of it is put onto the painting instead of him, so he remains eternally youthful, and it actually goes for like over a generation, such that like what people he knew when he was a normal age, he's now getting to know their adult children who were born like before the painting was made. It's like that big a difference, and he becomes truly a sinful character. But in the end, finally does something good. Instead of, it's almost Faustian as well. Finally does something that is good. And when he goes up and sees the painting, sees the portrait, there is a glimmer there. Like, yes, there is something good there. There is something that can be redeemed here. And then he's, in the movie at least, he stabs the painting. I don't remember what he does in the movie. In the book. And at this, it leads to his own death, but it's also all of the horror on there. And it is a despicable image. Truly disgusting. That comes on to him. Yeah, it's also an interesting movie. One thing else kind of funny about it. I should look him up now. But no, that might have been a different movie. But I think it was this one, because it was at the age when he still when predominantly you would have black and white movies. It actually would have the images of the portrait in color. So that was on color film, but the rest was black and white because it would save money, but also helped give the stark contrast. But now I gotta look this up, because there's one thing that is so absolutely hilarious. How that worked out. I was like, they casted that movie too freaking well, is the way to put it. Okay, yeah, from 1945. Come on, load up the page. Yeah, Hurd Hatfield. They cast that man too damn well. Too damn well. Because that was in 1945. If you look at him 20, 30 years later, he looks the same. It is freaky. It legitimately is freaky. Like, he aged so gracefully. And there was even, this was some people made jokes about it. It's like, how are you managing this? And he would, like, say that, oh yeah, I'm doing this. But it's like, somehow they cast, at least as far as the youthful appearance, they cast that movie perfectly. Totally by accident, but perfectly. Yeah. And that's right, you did also have Angela Lansbury in that movie as well. I'm just seeing the cast list here. And those two remained friends for he died first, but it was for the rest of their lives, as I recall. The rest of his life that, they remained friends. Okay. Okay, so yeah, just looking at the trivia. Like Dorian Gray, Hurd Hatfield maintained a good, relatively youthful appearance well into his 70s. He credited this to the fact that he neither drank nor smoked and exercised regularly. I mean, whatever, but it still is. I see the Dorian Gray kind of influence here as well, as far as how Anakin is so associating his sins with his appearance. But in truth, to Luke, the appearance is not that bad. And it's also, he wouldn't see that anyway, because what he sees there is his father, who he loves, who he has his love for. So, yeah, it's... Yeah. Do I think I may do one of these assigned reading things with portrait picture of Dorian Gray? I don't know. I got plenty of other books to do first. I got the prequel trilogy to go through first, and that's over there. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll stop this. We'll do another recording that will be like an overall of the entire book. But just... I already said it, but I'll say it again. Return of the Jedi. The novelization is incredibly good. Yes, there have been some weaknesses in it. Honestly, I can't even remember them at this point. Oh, wait, no. One is coming to mind. With Jabba going back and forth between if he's speaking Huttese or not. And that he should only be speaking Huttese. It's like that, okay, yes. I remember that. But by and large, I mean, it is just very, very well done. And, yeah, I better than the movie. And a lot of it is because... two reasons. One, getting into people's heads that books allow. And two, the writer did an amazing job. There's no other way to put it. He did an amazing and excellent job. Truly excellent job. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. See you next time.